This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on Stand Up India and its outreach. The participants are Sharad Kohli, economic analyst, and Shishir Sinha, journalist.
Mr. Kohli, welcome to the show. Let me begin with this discussion with the 6th year of implementation of this program. How do you evaluate this program? What is the need of this kind of scheme?
If you look at the whole objective of this particular scheme, which was launched by Government of India way back in 2016, it was called Stand Up India. I think the very name indicates the objective, that it was meant for certain category of people to stand up on their own feet. And when we say stand up on their own feet, where does this motto come from? The motto comes from the fact that we should try and create job givers instead of job seekers. Well, unemployment has been a tagged problem with this country since independence, and one can never say that we have gotten over the problem of unemployment forever, or we have reached a point where unemployment is probably not being felt and we are a perfectly employed nation. Even though some of the best countries around the world, some of the most developed countries around the world, like America, have to constantly struggle with this problem. So I think that is where the whole concept came from, that when Prime Minister gave the nara or gave the slogan that let us have job creators, job givers, rather than job seekers. I mean, not everything lies in getting employed forever. There is a lot which can be done when you are on your own feet. So I think Stand Up India was meant for a certain section of society, particularly the women, particularly the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. I think these were the three key categories which were targeted under the Stand Up India scheme. And we found that initially they were finding it hard to believe that something as dedicated as Stand Up India can come only for us. And I think the scheme was very well laid out. One branch, or I would say each branch, must give at least one loan between 10 lakhs and 1 crore to each of these category of society. And I think it was welcomed with both arms. If you're a woman, if you are a scheduled caste or scheduled tribe, go to a bank, apply for the loan. The primary guarantee or the primary security, of course, is the primary security which you are creating out of the loan. But the collateral security will be given by the Credit Guarantee Fund of India, which was created dedicatedly for the purpose. And I think it is a matter of great satisfaction that today, 6 years after the scheme was launched in 2016, and incidentally it was today, that is on 5th of April, that the scheme was launched. The government through the banks have disbursed more than 30,000 crore rupees. And I think it is a matter of pride because the loan has been given for starting their business. And I must say that more than 1,33,000 businesses, I should not call them individuals because some of them are also companies, partnership firms, but I would say 1,33,000 entities have been benefited in the 6 years. So I think the scheme has come a long way. And, as we discuss further, Shishir, I would like to spell out some of the success stories which have been made because there are people whom I've interacted with in the past. So I think various schemes that the government launched way back in 2016, whether it was Startup India, Stand Up India, Make in India, all these schemes initially may have been met with a lukewarm response, but then as the scheme sunk into the people, as people started understanding what this is all about, or if I put it in other simpler words, as the awareness on the scheme was created at different platforms, I think people welcomed and accepted it with both arms.
Mr. Kohli, one of the critical, or what I would say one of the most important feature of this program is that more than 1 lakh women promoters have been benefited from this scheme. How do you see, especially in terms of women empowerment?
Well, I think it has spelled magic for the women for many reasons. Because if you see the unemployment data of the country, and if we take a case in point of the pandemic, the last 2 years when the whole of the world has struggled, the whole of the world's economy has struggled. If you see the people who lost their jobs, and there was no choice because a lot of businesses had to close down, businesses had to scale down their operations, and the people who were shunted out or people who were shown the door because of the pandemic, which happened around the world, not just India. India is no exception. We were all riding the same boat. You see that the proportion of women who lost the jobs was far more than their counterpart, the men. And the other second category, of course, was the youth. But then since we are focusing on women here, so the women, I think they were found more vulnerable to this, I would say, joblessness, or probably women were the first ones to be targeted, that the companies or the employers or the businesses said that we do not have any more place for you. I think this scheme came as a life-saving drug at that time, because when the women, they found themselves nowhere, when they were shunted out of the businesses, a scheme like Stand Up India I think gave an opportunity to the women. In fact, I remember to dozens and dozens of people at that time, when they said that we've lost our job here, we lost our job there, our employer said, sorry, we probably don't need it next month because we've run out of business. The pandemic has shut down our business. The pandemic, we've lost business. We are working on a scale down operation and so forth. So I personally remember counseled a lot of people, and a lot of them were women, and I told them that why don't you make an opportunity out of the crisis? And I think that is what the Prime Minister in one of his addresses during the pandemic said, that why don't we make this as an opportunity? And I think Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, Shishir, which we've been speaking about for the last more than 2 years now.
Yes.
I think it's not just about the country becoming Atmanirbhar. It's not just about defense sector becoming Atmanirbhar. It's not just about our pharma sector, our steel sector, our agri sector becoming Atmanirbhar. I think each individual contributes to Atmanirbhar Bharat. So when a woman loses her job in a company, I think it is an opportunity for her to rethink on her career ahead. Whether she at all wants to seek another job, the answer is in Stand Up India. That go to Stand Up India, approach a bank, think of a business idea and culminate that idea into reality. And you will see magic working. A bank is willing. What is the first thing which stops you from doing business? First is the skill, entrepreneurial skill. The second key aspect of starting a business is the finance. I think that is where the Stand Up India weaved magic for women.
Now I will bring the two changes which have been brought in last year budget. And these two changes were, the first change was that the extent of margin money to be brought by the borrower has been reduced from up to 25% to up to 15%. However, the borrower will continue to contribute at least 10% of the project cost as own contribution. How do you see this change?
Well, I think continuing from what I just said before you asked me the question, and your question is directly related to what I was spelling out in my last explanation, which is that the first thing which strikes you when you start a business is the finance. And let's say I need to start a business as a woman, let's say a business which needs about 20 lakh rupees. And I only have, let's say, 2 lakhs in my pocket. When I go to the bank says, where's your margin money? We need to see that you've got something in your pocket. We are not going to give you 100% and so on and so forth. You know, you do keep it. We are not going to, we can contribute up to 90%. We can contribute up to 80%, 75%. I think that is where the entrepreneur gets stuck, because you've got, your idea is very bright. You know you're going to make profit. You know that you're going to generate employment for a lot of other people, but that big but comes in between, and that as of now, I do not have that money in my pocket to invest. However, in the next 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, my business would be flourishing. I'm very convinced. I'm absolutely a believer in myself that this business is going to run. I think that is where what you just said steps in, because reduction of margin money requirements, I think, brings more people within the ambit of the scheme, because people who do not have a seed capital, people who do not have their own savings with them, they could dare to approach the bank and under the scheme. And as I said, Shishir, the biggest, I think the plus point which I take from the scheme is the reduction in margin money, the fact that you are not asked for the collateral security, government guarantees by way of Credit Guarantee Fund of India. I think that is a huge takeaway of the scheme, which I feel. And, you know, if you see the number of stories, the success stories with over 1 lakh women taking the advantage of the scheme, I think it's very promising.
Another change which has been brought by 21-22 budget is the inclusion of activities allied to agriculture. Why I'm mentioning it? Because agriculture is one sector which has grown tremendously during the last 3 years, from 2019-20, 2021 and 21-22. Now the pisciculture, beekeeping, poultry, livestock, rearing, grading, sorting, all these activities related with the agriculture have been included under the stand-up scheme. How do you see, especially keeping in mind when we talk about there are so much disguised unemployment in the rural area?
Absolutely. I think, Shishir, you hit the nail on the head by raising this question. I wanted to, and I would have skipped it otherwise, because including agriculture in this, and if you take a typical village family, a family of, let's say, 6 people with a mother, father, and 4 grown-up children. And as you rightly said, this is disguised unemployment, because a work which could easily have been done by 2 to 3 people, let's say a 2-acre plot or probably a small piece of land with 1 or 2 crops in a year, 2 people can easily manage. But we find that all the 6 people of the family, maybe one son is studying in the city, but 5 people of the family are engaged in the whole agricultural process. So this is where I think including a woman or including the other two categories in Stand Up India work, because we've been talking of food processing, we have been talking about sorting, we've been talking of processing, we've been talking of setting up those units. For example, setting up a potato chip unit, setting up a tomato ketchup unit well near where the potato is produced or where the tomato is produced. We've been talking of this, but we did not see things getting on the ground into action. I think this is where Stand Up India can create wonders. Because let's say you've got a piece of land where, as a woman, you've got your husband or your father-in-law working on the field, one or two of your children who are also involved. You can probably set up a small unit or probably a small agri-processing unit within the home. I could call it as a cottage industry where you could, let's say, produce potato chips and you can supply this to some of the very large companies as well. You could become part of a very large supply chain. So I think including agriculture is an indication, Shishir, of the fact that the government is very serious about letting agriculture grow in the manner it grows in the Western world. That is, agriculture is not just agriculture, but there are a lot of ancillary industries which are related to food and other products which can directly be linked to agriculture and the incomes of the farmer, which has been so much the talk of the town. We talk of the minimum support price, we talk of doubling farmers' incomes and so on. So I think a major part of the family problem, the family income problem can be resolved if women come forward and they take the agriculture, food processing or agriculture related entrepreneurship in their own hands. And I think the whole family can be part. And I think what we forgot to mention here, Shishir, was the interest rate. I mean, the basic interest rate starts from 3%.
Yeah, that I was coming to after this question about the interest rate and also the repayment. What are the options available for the people who are taking part in Stand Up India?
Before that, I would like to quickly mention, Shishir, before I jump onto your point, that this scheme is not just open to individuals here. You can also have a partner. You could also have, let's say, a man and a woman partnership. The only thing you need to keep in mind is that 51% of the holdings must be with a woman or a scheduled caste or a scheduled tribe, the eligible categories of the scheme. So you could have the benefits of collective wisdom, of collective entrepreneurial skills. You can include others in your business when you feel that somebody is bringing value to your business. So that is I wanted to clarify. Now, coming down to the interest rates, I think the interest rates are basic rate of 3% and adding to that the SBI lending rate, of 7.5%. I feel that this 10%, between 10 and 11% is a very, very reasonable rate. And any business, the moment you start earning profits, this becomes your finance cost. And I think it is a very, very minuscule cost because the terms of servicing this loan have been kept as very, very friendly. So I think it will be a big opportunity for not just the women, but people who are from the areas which are not developed in the country. There are a lot of areas, Shishir, in our country where industry has not reached, where you do not find entrepreneurs. I would also like to add a point here before I forget, a very important aspect, which is I think Stand Up India and Startup India have a possibility of an integration. That is, the schemes remain separate. There's no doubt Startup India is something else, Stand Up India is something else. But I have found some of the women who were part of Stand Up India, they also got themselves included in Startup India. That is, they registered as a startup project as well, and they are doing wonders today. So I feel integration of Startup India with Stand Up India, if some kind of a bridge is created, if an initiative is taken by the government, I think it can take the Stand Up India entrepreneurs to the next level, because there is a fund created for startups, which is where equity participation is there. Yes. You could have a Stand Up India which is converted to a private limited company where you could have an equity participation. So I think that window of opportunity is there. It may be a small window because normally when we talk of loans of 10 lakhs to 1 crore, we are not talking of a very, very large business. But let's not forget that some of the Startup India ventures are also, they start very, very small in size. And lots of them have started with a seed capital of 50, 60 lakhs, which is well within the capture area of Stand Up India. So I think if a bridge is created between the two, unless there is something which already exists and I'm not aware, I think this scheme can be taken to the next level, Shishir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kohli, talking to us.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on Stand Up India and its outreach. The participants were Sharad Kohli, economic analyst, and Shishir Sinha, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on a mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on a YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may email opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.